Okay, recently I was on the Carl Henry podcast. It was absolutely brilliant, but I talked about the importance of moving through the hips because then we don't have to move through the back. Like if I can move through my hips up and down, you can see I can still stay within those 2 green lines. If I can't move through my hips, I'm lifting up. There you can see that my back aware belt goes, and now I'm moving way too much in my back. So we want to practice getting the hip movement, then getting the core so we can kind of stabilize the pelvis to move through it. So what ways can we then improve mobility around the hip? There's 3 things we can work on. The first is the joint, which is probably the most important thing to work on with the hip. So I'm just going to show you a few exercises you can do. So if you can have your foot pointing to, say, the far wall, your hand will be inside it, belly button's in, and we're just going to lean that side, keeping the belly button in and back up. Pushing out, leaning in and back up. Good, and I'm holding that stomach in. Now, people sometimes can have a weight here and hold it for tension and back up, but I'm pushing forward and then I'm pushing that knee outwards to the wall behind me. Belly button's in. That's going to really open up that hip. So we got one leg straight, and I'll do it from the side so you can just see. So one leg straight, the other leg's turned out, and we're leaning that side. You'll feel it open up. The other one I mentioned was to check for your hip is the world's greatest stretch. So with that one, we can come forward, we can bring the leg up. Now that will round my back slightly, as you can see in my back aware belt. That's fine if the back isn't actively sore because the majority of the movement's coming through the hip. So the toes are in front of the knees. We'll make 5 circles with our front leg. Then we can straighten the back leg. And then I can just add a rotation here. Now, if I was worried about that back position, what I can do is just have a foam roller or like a table or something. I'll bring the foot up, I'll keep the other knee on the ground. Toes are in front. I can start in that position and then work those, say, 5 circles. I can even come here, belly button's in, and you can see I'm still in between those 2 green lines, keeping my back in a more neutral spine, safer position. So if I'm having like pins and needles down the leg, sciatica, I might start with this one and then move to my hands on the ground when the things settle down in the back. So that's the second kind of hip mobility. Another one that people like to do is the 90-90 mobility. So you start with your feet wider than your hips and you rotate, and then you put your foot at 90 degrees and 90. You can see how they came up with the name. Now if you're doing this, you're going to lift with the outside leg and come back up. Again, you're going to round a little bit at your back here, but again, we're really just focused on getting the mobility through. We're not overly worried about a little flexion in our back for a couple of seconds when we're doing some of these exercises. What we're looking at is changing activities and being able to get out of flexion when we want and having the core to kind of stabilize that. Back up. So we just do that. Again, generally you want to kind of target like, 30 movements through the hip when we're doing these actions. Okay, and there's a few other modified versions of things that we can do there. Okay, so that's the joint mobility stuff. Next thing is the hockey ball. Okay, so putting a hockey ball in the middle of your glute, right in there, it's going to hit the piriformis muscle. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is, I'm not going to worry about this, I'm going to come around, I'm going to sit in it, I'm going to turn my foot outwards, and I'm going to find a sore spot, and that might cause like shooting pains down my hamstring, it might cause radiating pain into my hip. As long as I'm on muscle, I'm just going to hold that. Now what I do is I bring my hockey ball to bed, and my wife does think, what the hell am I doing? I'm just moving around and I'm hitting here, and then turn on the side above the hip, and I find that kind of sore, again, that other glute medius muscle. Try to release off that. That can send shooting pain down the hamstring. Well, don't be worried about that. It's releasing spasm into the muscle. And then I go to the stomach, to the outside of the belly button. I roll around, and again, I find a kind of soft spot that be a bit tender. I can lift the leg, And then I'll window wiper it, keeping the knee on the ground. And then I'll just breathe and try sit on it. Some people won't feel it in the front here when they do it. I feel it, but some people don't. So that's here, to the side here, and then smack in the middle of the bum. Bring your hockey ball to bed. There's no excuse not to be doing that for 5 minutes when you're chilling out before you go to sleep. Okay. Lastly, you can do static stretches for the hips, especially if you're sitting a lot, we're in that cramped position, so it's hard to get out of it. So what we can do, best way, the hip flexors start at your back, kind of go through here and then attach on. So the best way to do is a 3D hip flexor stretch, I call this. I'm gonna bring the leg up, I'm gonna bring my arms up, I'm gonna lean away from the side that's being stretched. Okay, so if my right leg down, I'm leaning to the left, and then I'm gonna rotate back towards the side that's being stretched. I'm trying to go nice and easy, and I'm just breathing, and I'll feel that right nearly from here, all the way through, up nearly into the stomach. And I recommend to actually hold static stretches for about 2 minutes. Okay, I think 30 seconds is kind of too short. I try hold this for like literally 2 to 5 minutes. You can have your hands down if they're getting sore, and you're really just trying to breathe, and you'll find that after like 2 minutes it'll really start to burn, but that's what you kind of need to do. We're sitting here for 10 hours. It's going to take more than 30 seconds to get this kind of open back up. Okay, so I'll do the other side, won't hold it as long. We're going to lean away from the side, rotate back, and that's going to hit that here. Excellent. Okay, so there are ones for mobility. I don't know if I'll cut the video here. I think I will, but I'll just roll on for another one. Once you're getting the hips moving, it's important then to strengthen around the hips with the glute muscles, essentially. So again, this is where the back aware belt can come in handy. I'm going to lie on my back, I'm going to arch my back, flatten, and I'm going to find the middle. Now we want about 1 hand's width of space here. Okay, so belly button's in, hand on your stomach if you don't have it, and we're going to push up into the ear. Now, if you can see, I'm then looking at this sensor, and what I want to do is drop down through the hips, and then push back up. Drop down through the hips, push back up without the sensor moving. I don't want to be rounding my back. I don't want to be arching my back as I go up. I want to keep the ribs down, and I want to just practice seeing, can I move through the hips, hand on my stomach, sensor's not moving. And that again is practicing hip movement with core stability. Okay, excellent. That's the way I would start with it. Obviously we have plans with the back aware belt if you want to check them out. Just visit backawarebelt.com, you can join the waiting list. Okay, hope that helped.